It's a fact you're not here. You ain't even real, but you still bring me fear. You make my bones so tired that my soul stands up. But now I'm starting to need to bleed to fill this cup. It's like I'm starting to need to bleed to fill this cup. Oh.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Working Wing, the podcast where every week we watch an episode or two of The West Wing and break it down from our own unique working leftist perspective. My name is Tim Schultz, and joining me, as always, my dear friend, longtime debate partner, and the man who that annoying little kid from the presidential debate probably turned into, Killian Collins.
It's good to be here with you, Tim. Good to debate with you here. Fun little start of the third season of the West Wing episode.
It's a unique time capsule in like American history for sure.
And I'll tell you, our plan was to just do a three. The true start of the season is a two-parter, but honestly, once I watched this, there was way too much to talk about.
Yeah,
to really just go on about it. So I guess I'll just like start the pretense off with, all right, so this is like the take us back to September 2011. Let's say mid-September of 2001.
Yes.
So whether it's your favorite like WWE show or like a next gen rerun, pretty much every channel or every major network that could really handle it, if they had a show that was involving politics or they had a live event, they had to completely acknowledge 9/11, if not dedicate their time to it. If your TV was not on CNN 24 hours on September 12th, 2001, you probably I don't know what you're up to. I mean, you were probably just watching TV just to like ignore all the shit that was going on.
Yeah, there really was no way to like. All right, so we were gonna share like, what was your memory of the day? Because like, yeah, the constant news barrage was literally instant. Because like I first learned about what was happening. I remember it vividly. I was 12 years old at the time. I was in my social studies class at St. Joe's Middle School.
Social studies.
When Mr. Olson, the big guy who taught, I think he taught like social studies in like the other pod or something. He came bursting into the classroom and he told our teacher that she had to turn on the news because something was happening. And I think at that time the second plane had just hit.
Oh wow! So you guys like saw it in school and everything?
Yes.
Oh wow! Well, that's seventh grade. I suppose that's a little that makes sense for it. Did you go home at all or anything? Or
no, it did not go. Did not go home.
Okay. All right. Well,
we actually had a school like a regularly scheduled school mass. Just a little bit after the. It was at like 9:30 that morning. So like the third plane had just crashed into the Pentagon and. Yeah, everything was just all. It was a crazy day.
Well, I imagine your priest was going like, "Well, I already fucking wrote this. There's no like,
right.
They're gonna have to bomb this church to get
right." No, there was lots of lines about like, yeah, God guides us in dark times and shit.
Damn, because that's like 9:30 in the morning. It's like really fresh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. All right. Yeah, I guess for me is I was in fourth grade. I was very excited that year in school because it was my first year back in public school after a terrible year in private Catholic school. But it was my return back to it. And I remember thing is like, I don't really remember like anything happening that morning. Like just, had math class.
Okay, yeah, they weren't like playing the news for you guys.
They were not playing the news for me in fourth grade in elementary school. They were not quite doing that. However, people started trickling out of school. Like I remember my friend and neighbor, Chris, got taken out of school with his whole family with his dad looking really sad right before lunch, which I was thinking like, okay, well, there must have been like a death in the family or something. But all these other people like throughout the day kept getting called to the office. and then just like being gone for the rest of the day. And eventually I got called to the office and my mom was there and she was also, and it's funny. Well, it's not funny. It's relative to the episode because she was explaining, she basically was giving me the crash course scared mother version of what is terrorism for a fourth grader. So, right. So she, you know, like that was like the first time there was an explanation of the IRA to me or any of this stuff. Like,
oh, did she talk about the IRA?
Well, that was her thing. Like she was terrified of the IRA, right?
Okay,
like,
I'm pretty sure because like, yeah, like I remember my biology teacher that day just like had the news on and he was like, yeah, I can't teach right now, so
yeah,
here's the news.
Well,
and I think whatever messaging we got, especially that day, was they hate us because we're Christian. I mean, coming from a Catholic school, that was pretty much the main theme.
Yeah. Well, and essentially too, there's really not too far because I remember asking that too, like, well, why'd they do it? And the answer was along the lines of like, well, they hate us because of the freedom that we have. Like that was essentially the answer I was getting. And
I mean, that's the answer that George Bush was giving the country as well.
Yeah. Who my mom hated.
Yes.
But anyway, God, I forgot how I was gonna run with this. Oh, I was gonna say my mom did. She did hear about it on NPR because they were interviewing an author, and he said he can't really. He kind of was like just kind of botching through away the interview because he's like, I can't do this with what's going on in New York right now. Like, which is very understandable.
NPR was running anything other than constant news coverage of New York that day, to be honest.
I mean, news, man. I mean, like, you know, it makes me think of like Owen Hart dying and then they just go on with the show. Like,
yeah, but like, because like all TV was pulled pretty much. Like, instead of debuting in early September, actually, I was just looking this up because it's interesting. This episode aired October 7th.
Okay, so
that was like the special, like the late start to the season.
Yeah,
they filmed
a new episode.
Yeah, and then fittingly for some of the stuff they get into here, the U.S. invaded Afghanistan 4 days later on October 7th.
Mm-hmm. Yep. To go in there and establish democracy.
To get the big win that I think Josh was saying. He's like, one of these days we're going to get... Man, we'll get into it. There is so much wild shit in this episode. It is such a 2001 episode. And it's also, I mean, we had kind of talked about, like, going back to, like, the last season of The West Wing when like, they're fighting with, like, the drug cartel.
Yeah.
They're like, you know, what's the point of being a fucking superpower? You know, one of these days we need to just, like, really throw our dick around and show the world who's boss. Like, this was the sentiment, I think, even amongst, like, the Democrats at the time. Even the Democrats were very much itching to, you know, show our dick to the world.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, they don't understand the big lie that, yeah, most of these drug problems are because we caused it. And
right, exactly. No, like, it's all fulfilling American demand.
Right. So, I mean, it does come down to like a standard of like these people just don't understand like what the implications of their policy actually like are. Like they don't really quite comprehend that. Yes, these Mujahideen fighters, they're freedom fighters today. When Jimmy,
we'll get to that too. We'll get to that. We'll get to I have notes about North Korea. There's a lot of wild shit.
I forget that I don't think I wrote down notes about North Korea in this episode, but
it's at some point Sam is being like, well, all right, I know you have notes about when Sam is talking about the IRA.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Sam is talking about like, yeah, these terrorists don't have capitals. And then he talks about like he's like the IRA didn't like destroy Britain. South Korea is still standing. I'm like, wait, are you comparing like Sam, the North Koreans have a capital.
Right. They totally fucking do. We
can disagree about like what North Korea actually is. But North Korea does have a capital.
Yeah, it is like an established state.
Yeah, it is an established state.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess we'll just run right into it because this is kind of a bit of a gold mine. I kind of figure every note we're gonna have like a little polemic to say.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
So first of all, this episode is called Isaac and Ishmael. I wonder where they're going with this. I just wonder where they are, huh?
It's God's fault, really.
Really, it is God's fault. It's God's fault.
He made people different, and that turned out to be his big mistake.
Damn these monotheistic religions all being relative. Well, we start off with the FBI field office in a hustle bustle, and they're searching for a Uran Yabi, several aliases, and there are calls for danger. Donna and Josh are in the office, and Donna's telling Josh that he has to meet with a bunch of high school kids. Josh doesn't want to do it, wants to get through it. And he says he's too busy. Give him a few minutes. The red phone interrupts, and they are on lockdown after he gets the call. Donna leads them out to the cafeteria, and they're all packed in there with Josh themselves, awkwardly wondering, why are we all here right now? Like, what's going on? And I guess it's supposed to be like the, like what the White House drill was. I don't think the White House drill was like this at all. Like, I don't think it was nearly this order. Like, I think there were people worrying about things, but I think they got evacuated out of there. I don't think they would have stayed at the fucking White House if they hear about like a terror attack on the World Trade Center. I don't think that would have been consistent with a security plan. I think the idea would be to probably get out.
No, I think the plan is to lock down the building.
Really?
Yeah, no one leaves, no one comes in.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, considering there was a plane supposedly targeted for it, that's a little not the best plan, but they didn't. No. Because if they had died in that attack, they would have been heroes. Oh God! So then we would have gotten to invade Iran too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like. Awesome. Jesus Christ.
No, like Josh goes on and like this little thing here, talking about how suicide bombers are bad, but we love that Secret Service guy whose job is to like take a bullet for Joe Biden. It's
like fuck martyrdom, but like also like respect the soldiers and the martyrs, and it's like what kind of message are you sending though? Like really?
It's the same it's the same like fucked up message that you see in these amongst these Islamic extremists as well. It's like even the people who like claim to hate violence, there's still a sense of worship for the fighters and the martyrs.
Well, the thing is, though, is I think a lot of people end up like putting a lot of respect on for martyrs. I think it's just that's not just in Islamic or European culture. That's kind of all over the world type of thing. Where
Absolutely.
I think of an old Irish song, "Riding the Gourley," and all that's about is that about like your friends going to like going to like get your friend out of jail and you find out he's already dead, and it's like, well, I think that's a very motivating factor, but it is that same idea of going like, well, but they do it. They do it with bombs, and and we do it, and we just do it to protect other people, and that's what it is. It's like they're willing to sacrifice other lives for this, and we do it by protecting other people. And it's like, yeah, sure, like you're protecting people all the way to their homes, thousands of miles away from your home, protecting them all the way out there to show them what democracy is all about.
Yeah.
I wrote down that the students start to have a little discussion about like the executive, about how weakened the executive branch is.
Josh is like, Josh tries to be like the executive branch is the most powerful, and they're like, wait, no, it's the weakest branch, actually.
I would say until the nuclear age, like
right
until the idea.
I mean, honestly, that's a lot of what like the Supreme Court is trying to fix. Because like Congress throughout the 20th century did create a whole bunch of executive agencies with like a broad set of powers because they're too lazy and incompetent to actually run the country.
Right. Well, because democracy doesn't work.
They're too busy fundraising and committing crimes to actually run the country.
I've said it once and I'll say it again. Democracy simply doesn't work. But yeah, then Josh goes into like, it's designed that way. It's designed to all like have them balance it out. The legislative should have the most power, which it like technically does, but
I would say right now the Supreme Court seems to have the most power.
Yeah, in the position we're in right now, then Yeah, we pretty much are.
In John Roberts' conception, the Supreme Court has the most power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it all really depends on like what the rest of the government infrastructure is around it, and like who's gonna like check and balance any of these things. Because if you have like a weak ass executive and a weak ass legislative, then
yeah, and there hasn't been any effective checks on the Supreme Court since like FDR.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. Anyway, the kids inquire to like why they want us dead. The same questions that we were asking is like, well, why do these dudes all the way in Afghanistan? Why do they want to attack the World Trade Center specifically? Because I didn't even understand what the World Trade Center was or what it represented.
Well, they never say World Trade Center. They're talking in like hypotheticals, and that creates a weird energy throughout this entire episode where Aaron Sorkin is literally like trying to perform therapy on himself in the country without ever actually talking about the thing that he's traumatized by.
I love that you put that so nicely, Tim. Like, well, at the case, yeah, they didn't have any like the news clips running around. It's just like it's them talking in a room. It literally kind of has the feeling of like
it was like kind of conceived of as like a stage play that they could do in like a couple days.
Yeah, it looks like a stage play, but it's like the setting of like a dare, like Dare to Resist Drugs and Alcohol, like setting.
Yes, it's a back to school. It's a school special for sure, or after school special, whatever they used to do.
But the high school kids are able to ask Josh, well, why do they want us dead? And then right. Josh goes into like how brave, like you're right, how bad these martyrs are, and how brave our Secret Service and our military are.
Yeah, and like the kids start like, I have it written down. These kids have read the NYT because they start going from like, because they're Muslims. They hate us. It's Muslims. It's the Muslims doing this, and it's like, yeah, you've basically been reading New York Times op-eds for the past few weeks.
Or you're asking your dad like what they thought, and your dad's reading the Wall Street Journal, which is basically the same thing, just with less liberal shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But worse writing and less liberal shit, but they get more of the fucking point. Mom buys a first aid. Wait, goes to schooling last year. Mom buys first aid kit and first aid kit and first response stuff.
No, Josh is doing therapy about his relationship with his mother.
Oh yeah, because she want like the fucking first aid kit. He's like, yeah, Mom, like you don't need all this stuff. Yeah, but she's always preparing. She's always not doomsday preparing, but it's practically there. Her mom probably these days is probably doomsday prepared. Like his mom during COVID probably is still locked down today.
Yeah,
by the sound of it. And it's I wrote down just the Arabs want us dead. Oh yes. And I think Toby makes this. Either Toby or Josh makes this comparison of like Islamic extremism is to Islam as the KKK is to Christianity.
That's Josh. Yeah, right. And he has to pry it out of them because they're like the Christian right. He's like, no, not the Christian right. The Christian right isn't blowing themselves up. He compares them to the KKK.
Well, I mean, they do. They do on occasion blow themselves up.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they do like to shoot shit up, and they do like to like threaten and kidnap people.
Right.
And
exactly.
And there's been like a big elongated history of this. Sometimes where presidents actually like embrace and endorse it. Look up Birth of a Nation, the first Hollywood film.
Right.
If you want to see proof about that, but it's really. And here's the other thing too: is that I'm sure that like those Klansmen, like in their own fucked up head, they're fighting for like they're fighting for their country. But like the thing is with like these Islamic extremists too, is it's like, well, they are actually getting to the source of their problem, which is like American imperialism coming down on them. And that's, they actually went to the source of it when like pretty much all the fucking hoodsmen were doing was just like taking out like racial aggression and being upset that they lost a war and couldn't win one. But it's but I see the point. The bad point.
I do see his point.
Yeah, of saying like you can't just judge because that was kind of the democratic liberal position at this time because the right at the time was going like, well, yes, kill all the Arabs. Yes, Islam is a nation of violence and Islam is a religion of violence, which is like, okay, well, you should look at all the other monotheistic religions or pretty much all of them, and you'll see like a history of violence is pretty extensive.
Right, but even then, like, the Democratic position was, let's kill all the Arabs who don't give us lots of money and good deals on oil.
Yes, right. But still with like the whole premise of saying to kids that like, well, no, you can't think of all Muslims like that, but we will like murder all these other ones across the world though, and you'll find out about it in like 10 years once you're old enough.
Yeah.
Josh answers that we do bad shit. Donna says,
Well, yeah, he's like, yeah, he nods towards like they have some specific complaints, and it's like, yeah, Josh, the entire history of like our interactions with them is kind of like the source of their complaints.
Like ever since we took the reins from the British, which we've pretty much just continued on, but for our interests.
Exactly. And the British interests as well. It's not like the British are really being disadvantaged by our relationship.
No. Well, they just weren't in charge, is what I'm getting at. Like we were in charge to help them.
The accents of the people running shit over there changed, and that's about it.
Still plenty pretentious, though. Yeah, Donna says that martyrdom is ridiculous. That anyone wants to strap themselves to like actually sacrifice themselves for anything is. I can't remember if she says they're an idiot or anything else, but I'm not sure. I mean, I still think, I just wrote down her little criticism about martyrdom. Josh then goes into a whole thing about like, oh yes, he then he does the other thing that like was pretty much the excuse that was given to why the terrorist did to me when I was a kid, is that Josh goes into how bad Sharia law is. He goes into like all these things that are like legal in Saudi Arabia, and all these like American aligned countries, and then goes into like, well, they do all this shit that's like all just terrible, and they hate us for doing that. And it's like, well, Josh, it's like, but maybe we should stop doing business with them though. But we still keep doing business with these motherfuckers.
Right, yeah, right, exactly. We can't stop doing business with them.
And yeah, it goes into like they hate our freedom, they hate our feminism.
Right, exactly. Well, I have written down like, yes, Ben Shapiro's dream world. I think that was when Josh was describing Sharia law.
Oh, Ben Shapiro. I mean, like what once Israel implements like the full, like their full, once they go like full solution with it and they implement their little version of Sharia law, then it'll be Ben Shapiro's paradise.
Right. I have that note a lot, actually, that none of these people, it seems like it's been a long time since they've actually read the Torah or the Bible.
Yeah, right, dude. They just like brushed over the parts that they thought would be like convenient right now to like criticize Islam. That's what they've been brushing up lately.
Yeah.
Secret Service. We then get a scene where the Secret Service violently grabs some Arabian guy. I've seen this actor in a bunch of stuff before and since. But they basically at gunpoint like take this dude out in like the office, and of course like they shoot it like it's all like this dude is like, well, arranging papers in the dark by himself, like, yes, right. And of course they like,
they tell Leo that like, oh yeah, there's like 4 guys with this name, and one of them is right here in the White House, and this is a terrible episode for Leo, but he's like, it was only a matter of time. Wait, from what was it only a matter of time until this? I think Leo was saying it was we started letting brown people in here, and now it's only a matter of time before one of them is a terrorist.
Damn it, we let the Russians in here. I knew they were going to let someone else in here. Fuck. Yeah, no, this whole episode, they make Leo fucking, they character assassinate Leo, which I think they just wanted to have like, well, out of all the White House staff, who are we comfortable having be the prejudiced white guy? And they're like, yeah. Oh, Leo, which is like also sad because it's just like, well, damn it though, because it's like, that's one of the characters like you want to hold respect, because they can't make Bartlett a racist, a closeted racist. But Leo talks to the SS. They said the purpose terrorist. He's got three Rakim Ali's. One's in the White House during the interrogation, which was completely the illegal interrogation where he didn't have a lawyer, and they're about to ship him off to Guantanamo Bay. He reveals that he's an MIT grad, and he pretty much just seems innocent. And then Leo enters, and at that point, I would think the guy would scream, "Lawyer, lawyer, 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 lawyer." Which they probably wouldn't give him either. Because yeah, and we'll get into that later when Toby's talking about his little Civil Liberties thing. Oh yeah, Toby right here has like a kill them all to the
kill them all, everyone except for what it was like the Yankees, the Nets, the White Sox, and the Lakers, and the people who work at the pond are the only people who are left alive in his utopia.
I was really confused by this part because I was like, are you supposed to be like the New York like stick in the mud where you're just kind of going like, well, I don't really care what happens around me, just like
I think this was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, it
wasn't. Aaron Sorkin having a laugh.
Yeah, it was. It was not. It was not funny. It was indeed like, yeah. I mean, especially when it's like you're seeing the footage of like the firefighter jumping from the building like in a cannonball is fresh in your head. You don't really want to be thinking about like all like the kill them all. Just have them all wiped out. It's like, well, Toby, like there are people who probably like were like searching through the rubble and like taking out bodies and stuff that's so fresh in their head, and you're just like. It's all just fun, just mass wide genocide. That's fine. Essentially he's like, don't bug me.
Yeah. I have something, read the Torah again, Toby, but I'm not sure what that's in relation to.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly. The next note I have in there is when religious law rules state. When the religious law rules the state.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's what I was reading. Because, like, literally, like half the books of the Pentateuch of Moses are just describing the laws that God thinks should be used to run a state.
Yeah.
Almost you like pick a king by the priest deciding who God wants to be king, and then that person is the king. And here's all the religious laws that you have to enforce in order to maintain God's favor, in order to rule the tribes of Israel.
It's kind of like an early constitution, but like, you have an authority that cannot be
dictated by God. Exactly what Toby says that is a bad thing.
Right. Oh my God. And then, we get into this to the little talk about, well, they have no government. The government has, they have no government with the Taliban. It's like, well, yeah, the Taliban was running. You can say it's like a shitty government, but
right, and we installed them too. Right. That's the thing that they entirely skip over here. Of like these goddamn Taliban terrorists just took over the government, and it's like, no. Yeah, we were fighting a proxy war against Russia, and we installed the Taliban.
Right,
we did that.
To make sure that the Soviet Union would keep it, and we were calling those people freedom fighters. We were ignoring we were whitewashing.
Well, and that goes into the whole thing. I have some more notes about that later, but and lots of people have made this observation, but it really comes down to, do you like the people or not? If you like them, they're freedom fighters. If you don't like them, they are terrorists.
Well, and that is pretty much like up to change whenever is convenient too, because as soon as you stop playing ball, because. There was once a time where Saddam Hussein was an American puppet too, and he was playing ball, and he said and he was even saying well, you think I could just go and march into Kuwait? And the U.S. was like, sure, go ahead. Just kidding though, that's fucked up.
Right. Well, all right. So I have a couple other notes. Isn't the Book of Exodus terrorism?
Book of Exodus. What would you like to go into a little bit, because I need a little refresher. The
Book of Exodus is the story about how the Israelites gained their freedom from Egypt, and it's like they God destroyed the crops of the Egyptians, and he killed the firstborn children, and he sent the plague of locust, and he killed Pharaoh's army by collapsing the Red Sea on him. Is that not just some terrorism?
It is righteous terrorism. So,
Speaking of righteous terrorism,
you're totally right.
Sam would like us to all keep in mind that the American Revolution, that was definitely not terrorism.
Not at all.
The Tea Party, that was peaceful and non-violent. And then a couple months later, when we literally seized a British arms depot and used that arms depot to ambush the British soldiers who came to respond, that's terrorism. That was a guerrilla action by a party that was trying to fight against the oppression of a larger government.
And even if you want to go with the argument of saying like, well, no, like, well, that's more militaristic. That's so it's not quite terrorism. It's organized. I'll also remind Sam, it's like, well, Sam, if you don't think being tarred and feathered is a big fucking deal, then how about we do it to your ass?
Right.
How about let's get you butt naked,
put
tar all over you and feathers all over you and kick you down the road and say,
we could talk about
we'll do this again to you.
Yeah, exactly. You could talk about what Hamilton was up to at King's College during that time. Or, I mean, people talk mostly when they talk about the revolution about, Washington Army roving around the North. But in the South, the British had a lot more troops, and there was a lot more like organized British presence, and the American presence there was guerrilla warfare. It was little groups of American fighters roaming the hills, ambushing British soldiers at every chance they got.
Right, and the thing is though, is it's like, I mean, at least the way that I understand terrorism is that it's used as a tactic to use the fear itself. To do, or what you could use it for any military action where it's like, well, yeah, you don't want fear of retaliation. They're using that fear against you, but
right, and attacks against like civilian targets rather than military targets, but
which is also the thing that like the military just does too. Like it's just show me an army that doesn't commit a war crime, I'll wait.
Right, or what we spent the next 20 years doing in Afghanistan with our like unrestricted drone warfare policies.
Very much so. Oh my God.
It became a calculation of not are we willing to kill civilians in order to get our targets. It's how many civilians are we willing to kill? And when we miss our target and just kill a bunch of civilians, how far are we going to go to hide that from the American people,
right,
and the rest of the world?
Right. Well, not that well, thanks to Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. Yeah, then yep, Toby's got a comparison. He compares the Taliban to the Nazis, which is like, oh boy, here we go. And then he's got a Holocaust story from his father about when he was in a concentration camp. He's saying that he thanks God that he would thank God for not making him like the Nazis, still making him human and doing that. Which is like, I don't know if that was supposed to be a comparison to like have us say like, well, thank God we're not like these terrorists, which the thing is though, it would be like, well, thank God you live in America where you're not having your skyline bombed every day, where you don't go to a wedding and you just get hit by a drone and like all the people that you love around you get like killed. And turns out that was the wrong target.
Right. Exactly. Or some shit that you yourself have no control over.
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. I have like the first act of terrorism ?
Oh, right. Yeah. I don't have, they talked a lot about this though. Oh, I think that's where the Book of Exodus is terrorism thing. Like, is that not the first act of terrorism? But
I mean, yeah, I wasn't even thinking of it like that way. I mean, well, if God did it with like a semi-auto rifle, then it'd be a little more believable. But hey, it's through his own.
They talk about the assassins.
Oh yes, they did talk about the Hashash. Oh no, well that's what's so funny too. Is it's like they act about the first act of terrorism. They say like, well, it started in the Islamic world, and it's like, oh, so you mean the Romans weren't doing any of that shit? Like the whole act of crucifixion, of like going up to the Gauls and just like crucifying them, like and leaving them up in front of their families. Like that's not you don't think that that's like using fear to get what you want for the state there at all? It all just started with the Muslims, right? It all started, and not even during the 600s. It's like the 1100s, 12th century type of thing, because the assassins come in, which is like, yeah, I understand if you want to talk about the origin of like hashish and assassin, which is what I think more so that Aaron Sorkin was trying to get at here, was like he just wanted to tell an interesting story, but it's like certainly not the first story of terrorism. Because it's like there's many older examples. You can go back to the Code of Hammurabi and even technically say it's like, well, yeah, like all these corporal punishment things that they were doing. It's like, yeah, it's kind of terroristic too. And I'm sure that there are people that there were rebels he was fighting that were using tactics like that as well. Like this is an old barbaric concept that even primates are doing, like kidnapping each other's children, like beating you in places where they're more sensitive, like where it's more sensitive and it's harder to recover yourself. It's like, yeah. Primates do all this shit too. Like, so it's like definitely not a Muslim thing. Definitely didn't start in the Muslim world either. I think that was my little rant about that. Toby replies, some Islamic war killing. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble reading my notes. So yeah, after he talks about Hashashins, what do Toby and Sam talk about after that? I my notes are a little garbled right now.
Oh, that's when they go into the American Revolution shit.
Oh yes,
which we already touched on. But then we we must go to Leo because I have fuck off, Leo, fuck off.
Yeah. Oh no, this is just. Oh yeah, I forget. This is where Sam goes into like, Sam terrorist full 100%, IRA weatherman all full. Yeah, that's where we get to where, Sam doesn't really understand where his borders are and like what countries actually like still have power.
Right.
So,
or what the goal of some of these places of some of these groups are. The goal of the IRA was never to destroy Britain.
Yeah.
They wanted the British out of Ireland.
Yeah. Which they're still working on.
They're still working on, but like, I mean, they weren't like completely unsuccessful now, were they? But Sam's just like, oh no, Britain's still there. So the IRA didn't work at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the big problem beforehand though is at the start of the Troubles is that like if you lived in a certain area, you couldn't vote or your vote didn't matter. Like it's a big fucking problem. And honestly, if you can't vote or your vote doesn't mean anything, how do you establish democracy?
That's a very good question.
It's a very good question.
It's a very good question for our own time too. But
but I can't really answer on here.
Let's not take that to its logical conclusion.
Exactly. But nonviolent protest, sure. Safety and fear, Israel, anxiety.
No, it's like, what do you call a place that just lives in constant anxiety and fear, where everyone just hates you and wants to kill you for no reason? And he's like, go in Israel. It's like, fuck off, Sam.
Zionist land,
because the people in Palestine don't have any anxiety or fear.
No, not at all. It's just a fucking paradise there, and the West Bank is part of Israel. I'm sorry, I'm getting into my thing about what Zionists try to argue. They're fucking fuck you if you're a Zionist. Let's just say that. So then we have Leo being the ultimate asshole when he's like interrogating Rakeem, probably with some brass knuckles in his pocket. He's asking him. He's like, cryptographers are dangerous. We got cryptographers in here. Like they're going back to the Soviet era where they're thinking that like, well, no, we have White House staff in here doing cryptography and sending it off to the Kremlin or where the fuck ever. Which I don't even know where this guy would be even sending it off to. Don't drag my dad into it.
They say something like his dad had donated to some group.
Yeah. Which, I mean, hey, if we're going to have like the son pay the sins of the father, then it's like, well, can George W. pay a price at all for their kids or his brother or somebody?
Someone in the Bush family should answer, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, God. Don't ask CJ about the CIA because we go back to the cafeteria and CJ is talking about how much she loves a wiretap.
Liberties.
Is that if you just want to keep these liberties, you need spies. To which Toby is actually like going back and responding like, well, yeah, we have these little things called civil liberties. You can just like give them up. And CJ is still just running on the whole, well, if you want to have these things, like, if you didn't want to have the Russians never came here. You never had to fight them here because we were tapping our own phones. And it's like, CJ, the Russians have like never gone overseas to the North Americas to invade anything. Like, it's unfortunate. Every time that like there's a country that's going across the sea to go and invade shit, it's usually the USA.
Yeah.
Usually, if not, then it's usually Britain. It's usually one of those two culprits. There's other ones.
The only country that has ever come overseas to invade us is Britain.
Right. And then the second time they came over is because we tried to threaten Canada. So that's a little more justified. But yeah, no, they just completely character assassinate her and make her seem out to be like a huge, like, where she wants to jail. She wants to, do this technique called walling on Chelsea Manning, where she puts a dog collar on her and smashes her head against a concrete wall.
Yeah. No, it's okay. And she like paints this, like she tries to paint this glamorous, like you need to be there to overhear conversations over Turkish coffee in Damascus or whatever. And it's like, no, CJ, that's not really what we're talking about, though. What we're talking about is every single conversation you have and every single conversation that like 3 people out from you are having.
Yeah. It's basically a tool for law enforcement to get you for anything else that they want.
Exactly.
It's a way to like just jump around that that pesky Fourth Amendment where people can like, protect, have
it's
privacy.
doing away with this whole due process. It's about secret renditioning like Arab Americans or basically anyone with a suspicious background in this country, whisking them away Guantanamo, torturing them,
yes,
and then holding them without any due process for years, maybe decades on end.
Oh, and here's the big kicker. You don't even have to be an American or be in America to get sent to Guantanamo Bay.
No, we'll just take anybody from anywhere around the world we want and just whisk them away and lock them up forever without any due process.
No fucking trial. No chance to prove yourself innocent at all.
And it's, if you really want to despair about our country, some of the Supreme Court decisions that paved the way for this were like 8-1, 7-2, 9-0. Like, we talk about how we just need to put liberals on the court, but not if they're just going to say it's okay to secret rendition people forever for no reason.
Sounds like we need a new court. But that's just
it kind of does seem like that.
Yeah, we get to the Toby drags out the Benjamin Franklin quote of a country that sacrifices a little bit of liberty for no safety. We'll get neither and deserves none.
And then CJ tries to contradict him, like, when there's a clear and present danger, then you need to make sacrifices. But it's like, CJ, there's always a clear and present danger. When you're living in a security state, there's always a clear and present danger.
And here's the thing. We do have this thing called the declaration of war. When our Congress declares war, our rights go bye-bye. Our rights go bye-bye. But that's the whole thing, is we haven't declared war since World War II, and we wouldn't really like that too much because you can't protest the war. You can't, like all those rights go bye-bye. And it's all dedicated to that. And that's like, well, that's where it's a concept where you have like a world war or a situation where the entire country needs to be mobilized.
Right.
The war is that constant push of society. And for something like that, where it's an absolute existential crisis, maybe these things do need to happen, where it's like, yeah, you want to like stomp down on dissidents that's going against and that's trying to fight you in an existential crisis. But that's not what this is. This is what the CIA labels as blowback for what they've been doing, for what an unelected power who we can't control at all, who no matter who we elect, gives more money to and more funding to because they're deathly afraid of them to have license to do whatever they want around the world. And then we have to pay the consequences for it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, to ensure freedom leads to a blacklist. Some of those terrorists have to die. Wow, I can't remember what the conversation this was. It's time to give. Yeah, we need to have time to give intelligence the money that they want. As if nothing. Yeah. We need time to give intelligence the money they have, because nothing happened in the 20th century to America. Nothing happened in the 20th century to America because of all the stuff we did for intelligence. The CIA protected us, Tim.
We don't hear about all their victories, Gillian.
That's it. We hear about their failures constantly. That's all. That's what it is. It's what it is. We don't give them credit. They're like the cops, except the CIA doesn't get, there's not those they don't have those viral videos of them like playing basketball with kids. They just need to do some TikToks. Like,
well, that's why they launched that podcast.
Oh yeah. That's why they launched that. Honestly, that first episode was already so bad that it's, but I mean, like, what's funny is that they start off with saying that, oh, well, a lot of people have misconceptions about the CIA. They think that we're like James Bond. And it's like, no,
that's not what people think.
That's not what we think at all, dude. We think that like you guys are just people that like are quiet. We think that you're quiet psychopaths.
Yeah,
that's what we do, and you probably are. Like,
most likely you are.
Leo and you have to go back to the illegal interrogation with Leo and Rakeem to decide whether he's going to go shipped off to Guantanamo Bay or not. so then Leo starts getting into like, yes, so you used your First Amendment a couple times, did you? You went to a protest, didn't you? And he says, yeah, I went to a protesting arms being sent to the Saudis. And he's like, well, why? And he's, just questioning like, well, why are you there for that? Like, why, like,
I think he was protesting the American presence in Mecca.
Oh, that's what it was. American presence in Mecca. Okay. Oh, what the hell was this? What's this? I can't remember who said this, but it's like women can't drive, and someone said we can teach. Oh yeah, Leo said we can teach.
Leo said we can teach him. But again, this is all getting very mixed up because Saudi Arabia is our ally and has been in every administration since the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't give a fuck, and they don't give a fuck.
No.
Like, the people who rule Saudi Arabia don't give a fuck about anything their people are protesting about. We don't give a fuck about anything our people are protesting about. It's a relationship based purely on economic self-interest on both ends, and nothing anyone says is going to break through that economic self-interest.
So that whole argument about democracies get along with other democracies, not necessarily.
It's a monarchy aligned with a oligarchy. I would guess that's what I would qualify what we have.
I'd say that's fair. Like a lot of democracies and like an oligarchy, like mocking like a democracy.
Yeah,
but it's also kind of hard to make a true democracy. So we're not there yet. It also gets revealed that Rakeem's high school had a bomb threat in it at one point, and Leo interrogates him about that. Of course, Rakeem is like,
it's not uncommon. Yeah. So this is the entire exchange where he's like, it's not uncommon for people who of my background to be questioned about terrorist attacks for no reason.
Right.
And Leo is like, yeah, I wonder why that is. And he's like, yeah, so do I. And Leo says the line, though he takes the mask off and he says, that's the price you pay.
I'm like, what's the price, Leo? Like, well, what's the price?
For what? The price you pay for what? And I think Rakeem even asked that, and Leo does not have an answer.
No, he just stares at him. He just stares him down. Like it's like I want you to fight me in here.
He's
right
about
now.
to lynch this kid. Like it's fucking gross. This entire scene.
Which honestly, if they're not letting you see a lawyer anyway, you might as well try to fight your way out anyway, because these motherfuckers are gonna hang you up like regardless. Oh yeah, CJ is on about coalition building. Yes, saying we need to work with the Saudis because of coalition building, because they're our puppets, and we need their oil. We can't have another Arab Arab oil price hike again.
Yeah.
We don't experience the 70s again. So they're all about coalition building. And they ask, where do terrorists come from? Poverty, despair, like here. Has it gotten much better? Oh yeah, and then Charlie goes in and he has his. I hated this part too, because it's just like, wow, way to use Charlie as the token guy. He's like, who knows about the gangs and stuff. Where he's like, yeah, dude, it's just he explains that like in poverty and despair, gangs start popping up as like to give people a sense of pride. And I go, Charlie, you're halfway there, dude, because like a part of what happens with gangs too is because there's not really the protection around there that they don't feel like that is around, and there's a lane, there is a gap that is open, and then young men end up joining these type of things in a sense of protecting the community. And sometimes they do a couple things that might do it, but they end up usually like getting into fights and other types.
Well, it's opportunity. It's also economic opportunity, right?
Certainly.
Like it's money. It's and the thing they don't talk about with these martyrs is that like these like suicide bombers are recruited from like the poorest of the poor, and your family is taken care of afterwards.
Yes. Not to mention we have our own intelligence agencies really encouraging people who are in desperate straits to do desperate things. Like this type of shit, which is like fucking horrible to think about, that like we have intelligence agencies that are manufacturing terrorist plots for people who genuinely don't want to do it.
Yeah.
but they force them into it. We're just like, guys, like, Can we fix that? Can we can have like a lot less people in jail, but it's like the idea is to like not actually catch terrorists who like were planning something like abroad and are trying to keep it secret from you. No. Their goal was just to like capture anyone in jail like at all and say it had all this evidence of a plot that they can stick them in there for to justify all the money that they're getting. And yeah, they're willing to stomp over American liberties. They're willing to stomp over all sorts of, international civilians' rights. Like, it doesn't really fucking matter who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Anyway, the note I have after Charlie's rant is the White House staff has badges, so I guess that makes them not a gang. You know, I guess once you have a badge, you're not a gang anymore. Like,
right. Sure. just ask the people of Harlem. In the early 90s, if the cops weren't a gang.
Right, you know, because they got badges. So how could they got shiny?
Right. No, I mean, the cops were literally like murdering drug dealers, stealing their drugs, selling the drugs themselves.
It's happening in LA.
They had badges.
Yeah, still in LA today.
All over the country, really.
Yeah.
Anywhere you got, please.
We then have President Bartlett makes his seasonal debut into the cafeteria. Everyone stands. He jokes with the kids and staffs and leaves. I can't remember what his joke is. It just
he wants apples.
He wants apples. Oh yes,
he's looking for apples, and like Sam is eating the last apple, being like, "Sorry, Mr. President, we ran out of apples." As he's like eating the last apple. And he talks a little bit about like the difference between martyrs and heroes.
I was gonna say, yep. A kid asked him that question, and he just responds, "Well, we don't need martyrs. We need heroes." And I'm like,
we need people who are going to stand up and live and fight for their country, not people who are going to die for their country.
And I was like, okay, Bartlett, so like, are you done being a practicing Catholic now? Because your whole religion involved is like set upon martyrdom. Like,
yes, literally the foundation of the religion is a martyr. God martyred his own son for his grand plan.
Right. It's all intentional.
Literally what you believe.
Right. And it was intentional. Like that. It's like. Oh my God. Well, I'm glad that you were jump. I knew you were going to jump on that one regardless, but it's like, God, but there's so much, like I said, there's so much in this episode that I know both of us were just going to be ranting about. Rakeem is getting grilled on Russia. I can't remember what it was about. Like whether he's been to Russia.
Yeah, it was like why it was, he was in Uzbekistan from a trip he took to Russia. He was in Russia, and then they took a trip to Uzbekistan. He's like, why were you in Uzbekistan?
It's like, why the fuck not? Like, why can't I go anywhere I want? Like,
it's so bogus.
Super bogus. And then Secret Service bursts in to announce that they found the real guy in Germany. Turns out we can extradite him from out there, and we'll take care of it there. Then Rakeem Rakeem is free to go, and he tells Leo that tells him that he has a bad memory, and that he was
he said he's like, I was there at Rosalind when a bunch of white dudes with guns were trying to kill us because one person in the group was black.
Yeah. And I can't remember if Leo even responds to that or not.
He doesn't.
No, they.
But he does. Oh, I think Abby tells that dumb story about Isaac and Ishmael.
Yeah, no, I was gonna. Yeah, that's where this all. Yeah, they ask like, how's it all start? And Abby just goes into the Isaac and Ishmael thing to say that it's like, well, no, it was God who it was God who divided the Arabs and the Jews, and it's just like, well, yeah, that kind of just sounds like a holy war excuse.
Yeah, no,
Abby,
literally just a justification for holy war. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks for choosing like the exact wrong side. Thanks, Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah.
Thanks for like, justifying this, like saying that this is just a conflict as old as time, and you fighting against it is about as useful as you moving the mountains. So,
and then we get possibly this might even be the worst scene for Leo, where he goes to the dude working at his desk and he's like, "Hey, yo, I'm sorry if you go ask any of my rich white friends, they're going to tell you I'm not usually racist like that. And you just go ask my rich white friends. They will assure you I'm not usually racist.
Love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal.
Love me, love me, love me. I'm a liberal.
Right. And it's just like, yeah, I swear I'm not racist. We all get a little racist once we're all like scared. Like once we're all like scared to death, then it's like then it's okay to be bigoted. All right. Weren't you all a little racist like when we were interrogating him? Weren't you all like upset at all the Arabs when we were interrogating him? No, just me. Just me. Oh.
I mean, I keep trying to bring myself back there. I was, the news was very grim.
No, it was. And then they play they do end the episode with playing for what it's worth, which is just like, oh my God, fuck you. Like, like I'm just being like, oh, that's the excuse for Leo's racism is that Vietnam song, which mostly that song to me was about the civil unrest of the Vietnam era, of like saying that there's a man with a gun over there saying, tell me I have to beware. Like it's about this, it's about the civil unrest during the Vietnam War, much more than just the after anxiety of like a terrorist attack that's due to our own imperialism. So, but really kind of hard. I do very much consider this one to be a one-off because I feel like the rest of the season they don't try to make Leo like a fucking. I just figured that they just were like, well, we need an old guy to be the old racist because we can't have CJ or Josh or Toby be president.
I mean, they kind of do with CJ. Like, holy shit. Our CJ, friends in the CIA.
Well, CJ, I'll give it. CJ is kind of how I feel like what the CIA is trying to do today, where they're like, well, guys, we're so diverse. I mean, if you listen to their fucking podcast, they'll talk to you about like how diverse we are. And it's like, yeah, you guys need people in Africa and in Mali to like go and overthrow governments. Like, yeah, I understand that you guys want.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
That's what they want. Like I have a friend who is, she's trying to go into the FBI. It's crazy because it's like, because she's from Puerto Rico and she's like, well, I want to stay out of Puerto Rico. And I've mentioned to her like, well, if you work for the FBI, they're just going to send you back to Puerto Rico, like
Puerto Rico or Guatemala or any other like small island country they might want to invade,
right? Or just keep an eye,
or destabilize, or
right,
do a nice quick little coup on,
right? Exactly. So it's just like, well, dude, like they're just gonna pay you more money than the people than the people that you're exploiting. They'll pay you a lot more money, but it's just like you're just gonna go and live in those conditions and spy on them. Like it's pretty shitty. It's pretty shitty work if you ask me. Like it's like I would rather do the overseas oil rig thing than do that, which also sucks ass. But
yeah,
like I'm only hurting the environment and providing energy for people. But profits for the company. But oh my God, but it is nuts because going back to it, I still remember. I guess we can go back to like September 12th because remember the day after that was like kind of like the therapy. That was like the therapy day at class where we all were kind of talking about like that was like we were all getting like the crash course of social studies of like, wow, why is this happening in the world right now? How are people feeling? How are your feelings right now? Like all of that type of stuff. And then I was talking about like, yeah, it all happened right when we were in here doing math and we didn't even know. It's like, a very unsettling therapy day when, of course, at least for me, many of our parents were taking us out of class and taking us home, wanting to spend time with their family with, knowing the uncertainty, which I imagine too, if this happened, if I had a kid and this happened today, I just want to make sure they're around me too.
Yeah, I get that. I do. It was an incredibly scary time.
Well, and it's like there hasn't been. I mean, in our lifetime, there's never been a terrorist attack like that on American soil. Like there has not been. I mean, you can say the Oklahoma City bombing, like that's probably the closest thing to that beforehand. But to have such a coordinated attack happen on such a massive target, massive targets, like.
No, that's true. And truly, like, the World Trade, I mean, that's become such a taboo topic to even talk about the World Trade Center in the past 22 years. But, like, that was the symbol of American capitalism.
Yes.
The tallest point of the New York skyline, the center of finance in the Western world. And they fucking destroyed it in an hour.
Yep, just about with that expert CIA training. That money's send them more money, CJ. Send them more money. They didn't fly those planes quite right. They could have They could have used some training to really perfect that in there. But yeah, man, it's and then 20 years later when we pull out of Iraq, ISIS is around. We pull out of Afghanistan. Taliban is still taking over.
Right.
We sold a lot of heroin, but we did not liberate all the women there. We did not bring democracy.
No.
And the democracy
we accomplished nothing. We spent. I mean, Afghanistan truly is the graveyard of empires. It's honestly, when you start, like, the 4 biggest military powers in human history, from Alexander the Great to the British Empire to the Soviet Union to America in the 21st century, all tried direct invasions in Afghanistan, and all of them failed.
Wow. Yeah, it's not much to learn from it. And even so, it took them about a good 10 years to get Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, and it turns out he was hiding in a penthouse in fucking Pakistan the entire time.
Yeah.
Pakistan, who we had been paying millions of dollars to every single year in order to provide strategic aid in our war in Afghanistan. And he was literally hiding in a fucking penthouse apartment across the street from the Pakistani Defense Ministry.
Damn, it's almost like the Arab world doesn't really have respect for America.
It seems like they treat us like their fucking credit card machine and their bitch.
Right, because there's that relationship of pro bono of well, what am I going to get out of this? Oh, well, you need this guy. Well, we're just going to sit on him and oh yeah, we're helping you.
Right.
And honestly too, it's when you're negotiating with a power that's just well, whether you like it or not, they're tapping all your phones. They're tapping all the phones of their enemies, and they're tapping all the phones of their allies.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're sending in troops for civilians and military alike. They'll march into your country, whatever the fucking laws are. Does not matter. They're the biggest dog. They're the biggest dog in the park.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
No, that set of NSA leaks earlier this year included conversations that we had recorded in South Korea. Mm-hmm. Who is one of our biggest allies in the world.
Well, to be fair, South Korea is also. I mean, South Korea actually has interfered in American elections before, which is pretty crazy to think about. But yeah, they've tried that slick little thing too. But no, America is we love this shit. We love this shit.
We do. It's man. It really. I don't know. I mean, I don't think nations should even exist. But that gets into me going into my extreme set of policies. So,
well, Tim, that's anarchism. They're ideological. That's neither here nor there. I'll let you do your anarchy stuff. That's all fine. Just don't bomb any railroads off the car. I mean, we have enough derailed trains already. I think you get that too. I think you get that.
Yeah.
So.
No, the railroads are doing a good enough job destroying themselves.
I just saw
make those quarterly numbers.
Oh, you do. I just saw a TikTok where there was some chick, and she's I think she's working on the railroad like that. She's she's in the train and stuff, and she's recording well, why would they fire me during peak season and stuff? They need people like that. It's yeah, chick, they're not going to fire you. I think she was talking about they're mad at me for making videos, but it's just no, I would rather see all that stuff about what you guys are doing. I want Americans to be aware of what's going on, because guess what? If these motherfuckers derail in your backyard, you might not be able to live there again. And the government's going to tell you hey, you can live there. So
no, people should see how there's 3 people running an entire 5-mile long train or whatever.
Very bad. Or you see and I'll see little videos of a train spotter just being noticing one thing where it's oh, that car right there, that's off the rails, and they'll have to call the station master and tell them what's up, and they have to stop the train, which takes them 3 miles to stop the train.
Yeah, it does.
It's the process, guys. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's a lot of it has to do with just with how with how old our infrastructure is, with the
how
technology.
old our infrastructure is, how long the trains have gotten so that they can maximize efficiency. It's yeah.
And how much they're trying to minimize the staff.
Exactly.
Even though it's just like
Exactly.
extremely dangerous shit where you need very competent people to go and do this every day. I think I got more people on my third shift staff than I do for, like, you know, these boxcars. Like, if they have 3 people for 5 miles of boxcar, like that's insane. I got 4 guys.
It's many disasters waiting to happen, except they are happening all the time, and we just haven't really done anything about it.
No, kind of like our whole, like, you know, our whole problem with like what it was with Osama bin Laden and stuff. Like, another thing I noticed too is that we never ever, and I know like why this was, but we never ever looked at like what Osama was saying. We never looked at all about like what these terrorists were like when they gave announcements about like, here's why we did this, here's why we're going to do this. We just ignored that. We were just going like, yeah, it's because they hate women. They hate how free our women are. They don't like seeing Pamela Anderson's boobies on Baywatch. They really don't appreciate that. So like they think that like all us and our kids deserve to die, which it sounds a little different than like what Osama bin Laden was really trying to get at, of going, well, yeah, there's all these skylines that are being destroyed here and there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm using my CIA training to make sure that you guys pay a certain price for that.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here say that Osama bin Laden was a good dude.
I'm not going to sit here and say it either, but I was only pointing out that there is a very unique American characteristic with our enemies where we just like we just put on our blinders and we just put on our headphones and go, la, 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 I'm not listening. Well, you're fighting for this reason. And we don't really look at like we don't look at their like strategic goals there at all.
Yeah.
And that's not, and I think that that's kind of done to show that like, well, we don't compromise with these people, even though we do, like all the fucking time. We compromise with horrible people every fucking day. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The allies that we made in Afghanistan to keep out the Taliban would make you think about like, wow, well, the Taliban was like getting rid of heroin. Well, like, you know, I mean, the other shit's not good, but that shit was good. But I guess we're just promoting heroin again, like. All right. And of course, like every time you have an American Army base around or like pretty much any military base around, what industry really goes through the roof? Prostitution. Just skyrockets, right? Wherever you have like any military presence really stationed for a long time.
Well, and you know, prostitution is the nice way of putting it sometimes when it's not downright like rape and sex trafficking and shit like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, those things are, and well, it pretty much breeds something for that, but they're there because that's a money-making way that's around in a place with no economic prosperity.
Yes.
Where it's like you pretty much have no way to do it. Because I remember there's one thing I wanted to talk about. In middle school, I think it might have been middle school. It was like a couple of years after the Iraq invasion. This is like, I want to say like 06, 07. We all read a book called The Breadwinner. And this is a book about a girl in Afghanistan whose father gets taken away by the Taliban. And she resorts to disguising herself as a boy to work for money and to make money. At the end of the book, they're liberated by Americans. So, right. So the propaganda war for like the kids was on about telling us that this was not about telling us that, yes, we are going in there to give these people freedom and they attacked our country. When it's more so about like, they attacked our country and we're super mad. So we're going to like completely destroy their government. Then not the covert CIA way, but the shock and awe bomb.
Right, exactly. Like the CIA way I could have gotten behind. Like the shit that Bartlett was talking about where he was like, at the end of that drug running episode, he was like, could we just take like 4 dozen guys with, you know, 4 dozen like government trained sociopaths with no families and send them into Mexico to like destroy the cartel? If they had just done that, but in Afghanistan, like dismantled Al Qaeda, that would have gone a lot better than the full on invasion and the fucking quagmire that we sunk into for 20 years.
Yeah. It also doesn't help when you're trying to like bring democracy to a place and you just level all their infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like when you just completely fucking decimate it, I mean, and make sure there's not going to be any economic prosperity for years to come.
Oh, but that's why they needed the heroin killian to rebuild
Yeah.
all the roads that we had destroyed.
Yeah. And to make sure Iran still has their heroin addicts, and help all those black market heroin dealers in that area, in the Eurasian area.
Yeah, as long as they're not in competition for our own set of heroin dealers, which we call pharmaceutical companies.
Synthetic ones. Hey, China's got the fucking what the fuck was it called again? They're always getting blamed for it. Fentanyl,
which was invented here in America,
yeah,
and sold here in America legally for decades.
Right, and now it's all over our streets. And that's what's so funny too, is I hear conservatives just being like, "Well, you just gotta close the border." It's like, no, you gotta close the factories too, dude. It's like, it's like the shit's coming from the inside, bro. Like
a lot of it really is, yeah.
Like with the CIA with crack, it was like, well, the hard part about that is you had to get it from Colombia. That was like the hardest part about it. And then teaching.
Well, and if you start reading the history of like DEA operations in South America, it's like, yeah, sure, the DEA can successfully dismantle a like international drug cartel, except for the ones that turned out to be run by the CIA.
Right,
with several of them.
And about 75% of those countries that the CIA overthrew, like what is it, like a third of the countries in the world?
Yeah,
that they've overthrown, mostly democracies, especially democracies.
Yeah, but democracies that might not have liked Chiquita Banana, so
no,
they had to go.
Thanks, Eisenhower. Well, I mean, yeah, man, it's So I guess I think that pretty much concludes what I had to say about this episode. Do you have anything else to add on this, my friend?
No, not really. It's just, what a fucking great time capsule to display just how terrible America was in 2001.
And really,
in the fall of 2001.
Really, and really just kind of seeing like how much we haven't learned still. Like, it's like if something like this were to happen again today, I feel like our government, regardless if it's Biden or Trump, I feel like whoever it is going to like stomp down 5 times harder than what we did in 01. Like they'll make George Bush look like nothing. They'll make
like Biden voted for all of the military actions. He voted for the Patriot Act. He was a fucking centrist shill for all that shit.
Shout out to Russ Feingold wherever you are. Hope you're enjoying your mojito right now.
Yeah. Oh man, I miss Russ Feingold.
We could use you again. We promise we won't run like Hillary Clinton again. But granted, if it's like they run Joe Biden again, people probably won't want to vote for him either. So like, you just picked a bad year to run, Russ Feingold. 2016 was a bad year to run.
Well, he had 2 bad years to run because his other time was 2010,
which I voted for him at the end too. But you, my fucking generation. Yeah, don't get me started. Like my fucking generation. Fucking disappointed. I'm disappointed in all of us, guys. I'm disappointed in all of us millennials. Gen Z, I'm disappointed. Well, Gen Z not specifically, but they
were too young. They weren't voting age.
But Gen Z for Biden or Gen Z for change, you fucking groups need to fuck off. All right, you're getting paid. You're absolute shills for the Democratic Party, and you need to fuck off. Okay, immediately. Like you're pretty much a fucking. You're pretty much a blue MAGA group, all right? Like it's like fucking.
That's very frustrating talking to like Gen Z Biden people because you bring up shit from like the early 90s that Biden did and be like, that's ancient history. Why does that matter? And it's like
because it affects you today. You stupid fuck. You stupid motherfuckers. Like it affects you today. That shit that happened 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago affects you up to today. I mean, the whole reason you get shit taken out of your paycheck for Social Security and for Medicaid is because of shit that happened over 100 years ago. All right, like it's fucking all relevant. Like especially when like there's people that are probably your friends who are in jail, whose parents or whose family are in fucking jail because of this bill that Biden passed that Republicans wish they could have passed.
Co-sponsored by Strom Thurmond, though. who Joe Biden also worked with to try to ban court-ordered integration in the 1970s.
Oh, that's well.
I do like to bring up that fact whenever possible.
Because he's such a
right, because like people will bring up people whenever you talk to these people being like, well, actually black leaders did vote for the 92 crime bill. They were consulted and they decided it was the best option forward for their communities. And I'm like, this bill was also sponsored by Strom Thurmond. So like, don't pretend that Biden didn't know what he was doing.
Right. Like, well, no, and Biden did know what he was doing too. Because if you look at like the trajectory of his career right then, he was trying to suck up to the Republicans all the time.
Yeah.
What was the big polemic? Like, look what he was talking about on the Congress floor. He was talking about like, I was cutting Social Security before these Republicans were doing it. I was doing it like well before that. I'm trying to cut social benefits before any of them are. So he was trying to be an anti-Democrat.
Yeah,
like he was trying. Have
you read any passages from his book? Because he spent a lot of time railing on stupid liberals in 2006, which might be what
Biden's book.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I did not know. I didn't know that.
He wrote a book in 2006 ahead of his 2008 run, where he got like 1% of the vote in Iowa and had to drop out.
Christ, yeah. I mean, it was like that in 2020. It was like that too. Like when I went to Iowa, like there was fucking no Joe Biden presence. There are more Amy Klobuchar stands in Iowa than there were Joe Biden ones. But the Bernie Bros by far had the numbers. By far, which is crazy to think about. Fuck you, South Carolina. Like fucking hate you. It's a fucking state. I would demolish you. I'd make you one Carolina if I could. So I just don't even know what I think about it. But I don't know, Tim. I think it's about all I got, unless I keep on going off about like
we could go off on so many tangents. But I think we have said it all for now.
All right, folks. Well, I guess, folks,
next week to when we will discuss the first 2 proper episodes of this season. Until then, keep working.
Keep on working.